My name is Bonny Hut, and I am an artist and a researcher on all things strange. I have just finished an oil painting called Opening Pandora's Box on Disclosure. Extraterrestrial disclosure, that is. In this film clip, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about each of these guys. They are all different types of people with different types of experiences regarding the extraterrestrial situation on our planet. Some of them are whistleblowers who have worked in high levels of the military, the Navy, and other government departments. Many of them have been killed for revealing to the public the things that they know. Others are some of the most famous cases of extraterrestrial abductions and other forms of alien contact on record, while others are renowned investigative reporters who are trying to fit all the puzzle pieces together. I will also add a few short snippets of my oil painting process between the clips about these fascinating people. Yes, Pandora here does look a little bit like a kook, possibly someone with a good imagination, because that is normally how people who talk about these kinds of things are usually perceived. So, I hope you can join me now in opening Pandora's box on one of humanity's most important and most mysterious questions. Are we really alone in this universe? Dr. Stephen Greer was a physician who eventually left his job as a physician after he had some extraterrestrial type experiences to found the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence in 1990 to create diplomatic and research-based initiative to contact extraterrestrial civilizations. In 1993, Greer founded the Disclosure Project, a non-profit project, which goal is to disclose to the public the government's alleged knowledge of UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligence, and advanced energy and propulsion systems. The Disclosure Project was founded in an effort to grant amnesty to government whistleblowers willing to violate their security oaths by sharing insider knowledge about UFOs. The Disclosure Project is a research project, and they also are interested in disclosing UFO and extraterrestrial related classified information regarding advanced energy and, like I said before, propulsion systems. They have over 500 government, military, and intelligence community witnesses with high credentials testifying to their direct, personal, and first-hand experiences with UFOs, ETs, and ET technology, and the cover-up that keeps this information secret. Now, if you consider that legally in most countries, 4 witnesses in the court of law is enough to put somebody in jail for life. He has over 500 witnesses with, as I say, these just aren't people off the street. They people with really long credentials, most of them. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled on the Disclosure Project. He made quite an interesting film called Sirius. Definitely worth a watch. Yeah. The Travis Walton UFO incident was quite a fascinating abduction of an American logger by a UFO on November 1975 while working with his crew in a national forest in Arizona. The Walton case received a lot of mainstream publicity and remains one of the best-known alien abduction stories. Basically, him and 6 other of his co-workers were logging in the forest, and then they were on their way driving home when they all saw a UFO, and they stopped. Travis got out of the truck to take a closer look while everybody else was saying, get back in the car, back in the car. And basically, Travis was knocked out and abducted. The other guys drove off very quickly in their car because they were really scared. And then they came back a couple of hours later to look for him. Of course, they were accused of his murder, and of course, nobody believed their story. They all underwent polygraph tests and passed the polygraph tests. And then 5 days later, Travis reappeared with stories of alien abduction, and of course he was also told to take the polygraph tests, which he passed. And he wrote a book, and there was a movie made out of his story called Fire in the Sky, which is worth checking out. Shnieder was a government geologist who had 17 years of experience involved with black ops or black operations. Shnieder was working for the US government, building underground bases. He had a level 3, also called Rhyolite 38, security clearance. Shnieder said that he was one of 3 survivors in a battle with aliens in August 1979. He died on January 17th in 1996 under suspicious circumstances. Many believe he was murdered by the government in order to keep him quiet about what he knew. Shnieder, disturbed by what he had witnessed while working in Black Ops, felt it was his duty to warn his fellow humans or countrymen about the insidious grey agenda for a new world order. Shnieder was a government geologist, engineer, and arguably one of the most controversial figures in the world of ufology and extraterrestrial subjects. Phil was born in 1947 and worked, as I said before, for the US government for many years. He worked in the field of nuclear medicine, was involved with the so-called Philadelphia experiment, as well as working for the government in building the secret underground military bases as mentioned earlier. Phil was initially quiet about his work and his knowledge on the extraterrestrial subject. However, after the death of his father in 1993 and the murder of his good friend Ron Rummel, Phil decided to shed light to some of the most controversial topics in history, namely the subject of aliens. Arguably, the most popular and most well-known conspiracy theory of Phil Shnieder is the so-called alien agenda. The engineer conspired that the US government knows about the alien agenda, and according to the conspiracy theory, aliens are supposed to take over the world in the year 2029. In his notes, Shnieder indicates that 16 UFO crashes took place between 1947 and 1952. From the crashes, the US government recovered 117 alien bodies, 4 of which were alive. The security of the extraterrestrial subjects and subject matter was handled by a special unit within the military. This unit was named Blue Berets and was part of the project called Project Pounce. Phil believed that there are 7 benevolent alien species currently living on Earth and 4 malevolent or so-called evil species. The theory further suggests that in the United States government, they had signed 4 treaties with aliens in 1944, 1954, 1962, and 1979. The treaty in 1954 was signed between the government and a specific species of grey aliens. Shnieder believed that the goal of the secret military bodies was to protect the Earth from a likely alien invasion. He locates the home of the alien bodies in Nebraska and claimed that the US government has piles of wrecked UFOs. Phil went a step further, claiming in some private conversations that he was present at a meeting between high-level officials from the United Nations and an alien. The meeting took place in a facility with expensive meeting rooms. Aside from the alien agenda, Phil Shnieder's material can be broken down into 5 other conspiracy theories: the Black Budget, the Dulce Wars, the deep underground military bases, advanced aircraft, and the New World Order. So, Phil died in 1996. Official cause for his death was apparently suicide. However, the events leading up to his death is what makes it really controversial. And in 1995, in a speech, Phil talked publicly about the alien agenda, the New World Order, the Black Budget, the secret military bases, and much more. Following his death, neither the police nor the medical examiners finished their investigation into his death. Many believe that he was a victim of his freedom of speech, his knowledge and his desire to be public, and his indication that he will release a book with everything that he knows, with all of his notes, photos, manuscripts, and other material that he had to be removed. Following his death, his manuscripts, photos, and notes and other material that he had were all stolen. Moulton William, or Bill Cooper, was an acclaimed conspiracy writer, best known for his 1991 book called Behold a Pale Horse. Public records indicate that Bill served in the United States Navy, including having done a tour of duty in Vietnam and having been given 2 service medals. He also served in the United States Air Force as well as Naval Intelligence until his discharge in 1975. Cooper caused a sensation in ufology circles in 1988 when he claimed to have seen secret documents while he was in the Navy, describing the government's dealings with extraterrestrial aliens, a topic on which he expanded in his book, Behold a Pale Horse. He also made some of the claims, the same claims that Shnieder made, Shnieder being the guy spoken about previously in the previous film clip in this video presentation. Some of the claims that they both made was that the United States government had made treaties with certain extraterrestrials in exchange for technology. Again, Cooper went into more detail about this in his book, and Cooper was also murdered, as well as Shnieder. Throughout his life, Cooper worked to expose numerous global conspiracies, and his latest conspiracy involved the September 11 attacks. He was fatally shot by police, leading many to believe that he had actually been correct about his 9/11 conspiracy. During the 1990s, Cooper would broadcast a nightly radio talk show called Hour of the Time. As an already established author and former naval intelligence veteran, he quickly captivated his audience with various subjects of interest. This was all happening before the internet took off and information was harder to come by, so a lot of people were tuning in Monday to Friday, eager to find out the truth. On 28th of June 2001, on his broadcast, he went on to predict 9/11, including that the US government would attempt to use Osama bin Laden as a scapegoat. Less than 11 weeks after this broadcast and after this prediction, his predictions would turn out to be fatally true. Naturally, he was a thorn in the authorities' spine. In July of 1998, Cooper was charged with tax evasion. A warrant for his arrest was issued but never executed. As a consequence, he was considered one of America's major fugitives and became a prime target of the U.S. Marshals Service in the year 2000. Never mind all those other criminals out there. Cooper was number one. Cooper candidly spoke about his situation in public and on his radio show, and became convinced he was being actively targeted by President Clinton's administration and the IRS. I don't say. After the tragic events of 9/11, Cooper's radio show attempted to expose the massive conspiracy that led to the attacks. He pointed his finger at the federal government, accusing the authorities of planning the terrorist move and duping American citizens and the rest of the world into believing a fabricated story. This allowed them to sway public opinion in their favor and execute their plan. Bill Cooper talked about planning to write a book detailing his tour of duty in Vietnam. He said he was dedicating it to everyone who had served during the war. Later that evening, while he was in his home in Eagar, Arizona, the Apache County Sheriff's Office paid him a visit. He had been accused of brandishing a gun around, and the police officers had a warrant for his arrest. The officers pulled up in unmarked vehicles without wearing uniforms and used trickery to draw him out. Sources claim the officers positioned themselves in a cul-de-sac, often frequented by teenagers who would party and leave trash behind. The officers began making a lot of noise, and Cooper came out to confront them, believing they were nothing more than drunken teenagers. The officers would not identify themselves, so Cooper threatened to call the police. How ironic. As he was heading back inside, shots were fired. The outcome saw a police officer being killed, but so was Cooper. Nobody knows who fired the first shot, and it is unclear whether Bill Cooper carried a gun at all at his time of death. The mystery surrounding Cooper's death has led many into believing it was not accidental, but rather a carefully planned and executed plot to remove an undesirable element. John Lear is a retired airline captain and former CIA pilot, as well as the son of the famous inventor of the Lear jet, Bill Lear. He is a former Lockheed captain and is highly regarded in aviation circles. He has flown over 150 aircraft in 60 different countries and has earned every certificate granted by the Federal Aviation Administration. John also held 18 world speed records and has worked for over 28 different aircraft corporations. During the late 1980s and early 1990s, John began coming forward with some startling revelations concerning the subject of aerial phenomena and UFOs, or unidentified flying objects. John is the only pilot to hold every FAA airline certificate. He flew secret missions for the CIA in Central and Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa between 1966 and 1983. John held 17 world records, including speed around the world in a Lear jet Model 24. Set in 1966. He was a senior vice commander for the China Post 1, the American Legion Post for the Soldiers of Fortune. He's also a 20-year member of the Special Operations Association. John has been a resident of Las Vegas since 1994 and was a Republican state Senate candidate in 1980. In 1988, John met and became friends with Bob Lazar, the government scientist who worked on back engineering the propulsion systems of extraterrestrial UFOs at an area called S4, which was located just outside of the infamous and ultra-secret Area 51 base. The next clip on this video presentation is of Bob Lazar, so do stay tuned for that one. In March 1989, Lazar took John to an area close to Rachel, Nevada, where he witnessed the flight of a flying saucer at the exact time Lazar told him it would occur. 2 weeks later, on another UFO spying mission, John, Lazar, and 3 others were caught by security forces. And the very next day, Lazar lost his job at the government program for that breach of security. Lazar has been branded by many as a fraud, a charge to which John responds, "Those who say that Lazar was a fraud simply don't know the facts of this incredible 12-month period. I was there, they weren't." Quote unquote. During the late 1980s, John tracked down and found the Army intelligence analyst who read, probably by accident, the US government report known as Grudge 13, which documented the history of the United States UFO cover-up and details of flying saucer recoveries, position of their occupants, and handling, that's handling of civilian witnesses. The report included clear photographs of all these recovered extraterrestrial craft and beings found inside. It further detailed how recoveries were made worldwide and especially designed transports were made to accommodate the crafts. John also spent time poking around other UFO-related areas to include Dulce, Socorro, Aztec, Los Alamos, Bentwaters, and other air bases near London. Since that time, John has learned many incredible and interesting facts about the solar system and planets, including the existence of huge structures, arches, bridges, and domes on the moon, cities on Mars, huge extraterrestrial ships mining the rings of Saturn, the incredible but secret agenda of Apollo 17, to the huge rectangular opening in the south massif of the Taurus Littrow Highlands, called Nansen. John Lear suspects that Venus does not have the sulfuric acid atmosphere with an 800-degree temperature that we've all been led to believe, and that instead it's a planet very similar to ours, but with a similar but much more technologically more advanced civilization. He states that in the late 1950s, NASA was formed to compartmentalize, containerize, and sanitize information from all the space platforms and vehicles. He believes that NASA was sold to the public, claiming that all information would belong to them, and that the public got very little information, but the information that the public did get was highly sanitized. Lear also states that the government has made secret deals with the aliens, actually exchanging humans for advanced technological data. John Lear believes that the government has very good reasons for their continued cover-up, but refuses to discuss them. He also believes that the government will never, ever release any UFO information, and if forced to say anything, will obscure, tangle, and weave a deceptive lie. Robert Scott Lazar, known as Bob Lazar, is a whistleblower and was born in 1959. He was mentioned in the previous video clip about John Lear, because John Lear claims to have been with Lazar in some of the hangars that apparently contained UFOs. Lazar worked on reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology at a site called S4, which was near the Area 51 test facility. And he claims that the UFOs use a gravity wave propulsion system. He further claims to have read US government briefing documents that describe alien involvement with human affairs over the past 10,000 years. Lazar claims to have worked in 1988 and 1989 as a physicist at the S4, which was allegedly located at Papoose Lake, southwest of the top-secret Area 51 facility. S4 apparently serves as a hidden military location for the study and research of extraterrestrial spacecraft or flying saucers using reverse engineering. Lazar holds degrees from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the California Institute of Technology, and he claims to have worked as a scientist in the meson physics facility at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. However, after blowing the whistle on many government secrets, records of him working at these facilities and records of his education have now been wiped in order to try and make him lose his credibility. Lazar first appeared in the media in Omni magazine in the early 1980s. He also appeared on television on a local Las Vegas news program discussing many of his experiences at the S4 location and at Area 51. In November 1989, Lazar appeared in a special interview with investigative reporter George Knapp on a Las Vegas TV station in order to discuss his employment at S4. In his interview with Knapp, Lazar said that he encountered several flying saucers. He says that he first thought the saucers were secret military terrestrial aircraft whose test flights might have been responsible for the many UFO reports. On closer examination, and from having been shown multiple briefing documents, Lazar eventually came to the conclusion that the discs were of extraterrestrial origin. In his filmed testimony, Lazar explains how his impression first hit him after he boarded one aircraft being studied and examined. Lazar claims that when he worked at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, he was involved with experiments using a half-mile-long linear particle accelerator. For the propulsion of the studied vehicles, Lazar claims that the atomic element 115, which was previously unknown, served as a nuclear fuel. The element 115, temporarily named unobtainium, with the chemical symbol of UUP, reportedly provided an energy source which could produce an anti-gravity effect under proton bombardment, along with antimatter for energy production. As the intense, strong nuclear force field of elements 115 nucleus could properly be amplified, the resulting large-scale gravitational effect could be a distortion or warped of space-time that would in effect greatly shorten the distance and travel to a destination. Lazar's stories have garnered considerable media attention and controversy. Lazar's story has many supporters and many skeptics. Lazar claims that the S4 base contained 9 aircraft hangars built into the side of the mountain range, with hangar doors constructed on an angle matching the slope of the mountain. The doors to the hangars are camouflaged with a natural material to blend in with the side of the mountain and the adjoining desert floor. He claims that the site is protected from all view, being located within the valley. And these hangars are, according to Lazar, the laboratories and scientific studying areas of extraterrestrial spacecraft. Mary Rodwell is recognised internationally as one of Australia's leading researchers and writers in the UFO and contact phenomenon areas. Mary is the author of the highly acclaimed book called Awakening: How Extraterrestrial Contact Can Transform Your Life, released in 2002. And she's also the producer of award-winning documentaries, such as a documentary called Expressions of ET Contact, a visual blueprint, and Expressions of ET Contact, communication and healing blueprint. Her new book, which is called The New Human, describes and documents star children and was released in 2016. Mary is the founder and principal of Australian Close Encounter Research Network, known as ACERN, which was established in 1997 and provides professional counseling support, hypnotherapy, and information to individuals and their families who claim to have anomalous paranormal experiences and abduction contact experiences. She's also the director and chair of the Experience Support Programs of Dr. Edgar Mitchell and the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, and also an advisory committee member of Exopolitics. So also Mary has researched more than 3,000 cases and suggests that extraterrestrial encounters are a global phenomenon. And this is evident in the new humans referred to as star children. Mary affirms that star children exhibit maturity and wisdom beyond their years and have an awareness and spiritual connection to spiritual realms, which includes, of course, the indigo and crystal children. And there is lots more. She also explores evidence from a scientific, biological, psychological, anthropological, spiritual and historical perspective to support what she believes is a genetic engineering program for upgrading Homo sapiens, leading to a paradigm shift in human consciousness. Anyway, she is definitely worth checking out. So, yeah. Stan Romanek claims to have been abducted by aliens many, many times. His particular case is apparently one of the most documented cases of all time at this present time. Netflix has just released a documentary about him called Extraordinary, the Stan Romanek story, where they release 195 pieces of evidence in an attempt to prove his claims of his various stories. His first encounter was in 2000, and he said he has had many experiences with aliens ever since, and other very strange occurrences. One of his encounters with aliens was on YouTube and went viral. A very interesting case to have a look at. I have read Stan's book. His book was very interesting, but not that well written, because he's not a skilled writer, but still worth a read, because it was obviously not so much about his writing abilities, more about the information in the book. Definitely worth a look. Jim Sparks is a well-known experiencer in the human abduction scenario. He is now a lecturer and an author of the most popular book called The Keepers. He was raised in South Florida and educated in business and worked in real estate. Jim's abductions began in 1988. And at the time, he was living in Houston and working as a successful land developer. Of course, with his abductions, his business went a bit downhill because his abductions were quite traumatic, and he wasn't able to focus on his work so well. So he was initially a very unwilling abductee. His experience eventually transformed after many years of abductions, once he was able to put aside his rage and overcome his fear. Jim eventually began to understand he was encountering highly intelligent, advanced beings from other worlds. So I have read Jim's book called The Keepers. It is an absolute page turner. I've also listened to most of his lectures online. There's a huge amounts of information in his book that's not in his lectures, but there's still unbelievable information in his online lectures. And I'll tell you a little personal story about an interaction I had with Jim via email. I emailed him in 2015 and asked him 3 questions. And the next morning I woke up with 3 dots in a triangle under my arm. So I don't know if everyone that contacts Jim via email gets these strange marks on their body appear. I doubt it, but maybe it was the nature of my questions. I have no idea. I don't suggest everybody goes and emails Jim in a hurry, because that will just flood his email. And also Jim graciously, replied. So anyway, Jim had been completely conscious of his face-to-face abduction experiences, giving him clear memories and gaining amazing insight. In the last 2 decades that he'd been dealing with the ETs, he has witnessed amazing sciences, and he now knows there is a plan to evaluate ourselves, to better understand what these beings are about, so we may evolve. Today he realizes he's not alone, whereas many years he was very alone and felt very isolated. Many others have gone through similar experiences, whether fortunate or unfortunate. He differs from most abductees in the fact that he has total recall of his experiences with these beings from other regions and dimensions of space and time. His goal is to explain the agenda of these beings and the message they bring to humanity. So his work is, quite fascinating, and as I said before, I've just finished reading his book. His book is, The Keepers, is, in my opinion, well written, very insightful, worth a read. I just downloaded it from Kindle, so it's available on Amazon Kindle. And yeah. David Paulides was a law enforcement officer from the US, and he is the only one who currently actively investigates very strange and unusual cases of missing people throughout many decades, primarily from national forests. So these aren't people who go missing under normal circumstances. All of these cases have got some very mysterious elements to them. And he's written several books and made documentaries, and there's a lot about him on YouTube. Now, David is not specifically saying that they are extraterrestrial abductions. In fact, he, as a law enforcement officer, he says it is his job to simply present the facts, and he's not presenting his opinion as to what's happened to these people or why it's happened. He is simply presenting the facts as a law enforcement officer who is doing an accurate job would. So David Paulides received his undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of San Francisco and has a professional background that includes 20 years in law enforcement and senior executive positions in the technology sector. In 2001, a tip from national park rangers about missing people started him researching into the topic and eventual information of the Can-Am Missing Project. This information eventually led David to authoring several books called the Missing 411 books. On July the 26th, 2016, David released his 6th book called Missing 411, Hunters, the story of hunters who have disappeared in the wilds in 4 different countries. Now, of course, remembering hunters are usually well armed and also very familiar with their surrounding terrain. So they are very unlikely people to go missing under normal circumstances. Anyway, all of the stories are completely baffling, disturbing, and mind-bending. These disappearances bring the total number of missing geographical clusters, so clusters or groups of people in North America, to 59 clusters. Mr. Paulides was an invited speaker at the 2012 National Association of Search and Rescue at their annual conference in South Lake Tahoe, where he presented a lot of his findings that were detailed in his Missing 411 series of books. So this is quite baffling, and one of the most interesting things about all his research is the degree to which apparently to which the authorities, the various authorities, and the lengths that the authorities have gone to hide these cases. So instead of making the public aware of all the people vanishing under very mysterious circumstances, they doing as much as possible to hide these cases from the public. So yeah, absolutely check him out on YouTube and have a look at some of his books and documentaries. Well worth it. Dr. Karla Turner I found her fascinating. She was a doctor that suddenly started getting these experiences. She started writing, she wrote several books. I've probably read about half her books that she's written. They were very interesting and quite bizarre. She died of cancer in January 10th, 1996, after being threatened for her work, which would have been the expose of her extraterrestrial experiences. She was just 48 when she died. Since then, several other people involved with UFO investigation have also experienced threats, followed by highly unusual cancers. Several of her case studies are now dead as a result. Dr. Karla Turner was widely respected in the UFO community for her research on alien abduction. A scholar and professional educator, she earned a PhD in Old English Studies and taught at the university level in Texas for more than 10 years. But in 1988, she and her husband and son endured a shocking series of experiences and recollections that forced them to recognize that they were all abductees. So until then, she was pretty normal and had a normal life. Karla's response was to drop her professional university career and turn her full attention to abduction research. Her first book, Into the Fringe, told of her own experiences and those of her family. I've read Into the Fringe, and yeah, it was phenomenal. I just got it off Kindle, so it is available there. And her second book, Taken: Inside the Human Alien Abduction Agenda, profiled the abduction stories of 8 women whose experiences, including both alien and human intrusions, and both benign and negative elements, illustrating the profoundly complex nature of the abduction mystery. Now, I have also read this second book called Taken. Personally, I found the second book a little bit confusing because it involved bits and pieces from 8 different women or 8 different people. It didn't flow as well as her first book, which was Into the Fringe. That's just my opinion. Her most recent book, Masquerade of Angels, was co-written with a psychic, Ted Rice, and recounts Ted's lifelong encounters with strange entities whose identity hovered in Shadowland between angelic and demonic. Karla was also working on another book when she suddenly became ill in 1995. Now, her third book, Masquerade of Angels, I have not read, so yeah, you tell me. Richard Hoagland is a renowned researcher into the fields of exopolitics. He's also an author who wrote several books. Some of the books included the book called Monuments of Mars, A City on the Edge of Forever, and another book called Dark Mission, The Secret History of NASA, and of course another book called Lost Horizon. Richard is a former Space Science Museum curator and also a former NASA consultant. And during the historic Apollo missions to the moon, he was the science advisor to Walter Cronkite and CBS News. He now also has his own radio show, which is called The Other Side of Midnight, which is on Tuesday nights. I'm sure it's available online as well. Yeah, just check out his website. Well, the radio station has a website actually called theothersideofmidnight.com. So do check him out. He's very interesting and he's got incredible information. Whitley Strieber is an extremely well-known author of many books and novels. He started writing about extraterrestrial topics after his claimed abduction, which happened in a cabin in the woods in 1985. A lot of his books have been made into films and TV series, such as his book Communion, and Alien Hunter has been made into a TV series by Sci-Fi Channel, and The Greys is currently being made into a film. Supernatural, A New Vision of the Unexplained, is Whitley's latest book. It went on sale in 2016. The book, written with Professor Jeffrey Kripal, redefines the meaning of close encounter and the UFO phenomena, and it has been called the most important book on the paranormal in the last 40 years by author Gary Jansen. Also, his book Communion has sold over 2 million copies. He's also got a online radio show called Dreamland, where he regularly interviews other people who've had experiences and other researchers and other extremely interesting people worth listening to. Richard Dolan is apparently one of the world's leading researchers and writers on the subject of UFOs and believe that they constitute the greatest mystery of our time. He is the author of 2 volumes of history, UFOs and the National Security State, both groundbreaking works which together provide the most factually complete and accessible narrative of the UFO subject available anywhere. He also co-authored a speculative book about the future, AD, After Disclosure, the first ever analysis not only of how UFO secrecy might end, but of the all-important question, what happens next? Richard's latest work, UFOs for the 21st Century Mind, provides a fresh treatment of the entire subject. In it, he discusses the important sightings, encounters, the politics, the cover-up, ancient aliens, the bizarre science, disclosure, and offers advice on being both critical and open-minded in today's world. Like his previous 3 books, it asks fresh questions and offers new insights into further understanding of the UFO mystery. Richard hosts a weekly radio show called The Richard Dolan Show on KGRA radio, and is also a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM. He is currently featured on several television series and documentaries, including Ancient Aliens, Hangar 1, The UFO Files, and Close Encounters, and others as well. For the last 2 decades, Richard has been a dedicated student of all things related to UFOs, steadily expanding his interests within that topic from his initial focus on the government documents and cover-up. Now his interests include it all, from the deepest aspects of the cover-up to contact and abduction, the science behind the phenomenon, and how the phenomenon has affected world culture. His theory of a breakaway civilization, the possible relationship of artificial intelligence and biotechnology to the UFO phenomenon, and implications of the end of secrecy, that is, the world after disclosure. Today, there is no aspect of the phenomenon Richard won't study. He continues to look forward to exploring this topic in all its depth, a topic he believes opens our doors of perception, challenging us to see the world differently and more clearly. In addition to his research, Richard's company, the Dolan Press, actively publishes innovative books by authors from around the world. George Green's career extends from doing military service in the USAF, where he also encountered alien disc craft in a remote hangar at Edwards AFB, through to playing Monopoly in corporate banking and large-scale real estate construction, to working closely with a group of extraterrestrials called the Pleiadians and other benevolent intelligences to so-called wake people up, quote unquote, in preparation for coming changes. Very few people have a span of personal experience and contacts which is as broad as George's experiences and contacts. As George describes, he used to so-called run around with the big boys. He was asked to build an enemy prisoner of war camp in downtown Los Angeles. He refused. And then he was asked to be finance chairman for the Carter administration, but declined after it became clear to him that the ethics of many of the senior players in this world are heavily compromised. Shortly after he turned down the offer to be finance chairman for the Carter administration, his loans were called in and he lost many millions of dollars as finance was removed from dozens of major construction projects that he was in the middle of. Undeterred, George rebuilt his world and is now in direct contact with Pleiadian intelligences and other beings. He has devoted his life to spreading the word that not all is as it seems. His very important free e-book called Handbook for the New Paradigm, which can be downloaded from his website, has been read by millions all over the world, telling us that his sources are informing him that too few people are waking up and that it is almost too late. His own bags are packed and he is about to relocate to Ecuador, where he says that many insiders have bought real estate and have already left the United States. When asked when we might expect major changes to occur, his response is to look and watch. He said the moment we launch a strike against Iran is the moment no longer to be in the United States. And he also says, quote unquote, pretty soon we'll be waking up one Monday morning to find that the world is no longer the same. George also runs a publishing company called Global Insights, where many unusual and amazing books that could not be published through conventional publishing companies due to their controversial content are successfully published. So do check out his website because there's some amazing books on there. Jim Mars is an amazing researcher and writer and investigator into cover-ups and conspiracies. He's a former newspaper journalist and also a New York best-selling author of many books and articles. He's a prominent figure in the JFK conspiracy press, and his book Crossfire was a source for Oliver Stone's film JFK. He's written books asserting the existence of government conspiracies regarding aliens, 911 telepathy, and secret societies. He was also a member for Scholars for 911 Truth. He is from Texas originally, and he earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in journalism from the University of North Texas. So his books are very well written. He worked for several Texas newspapers, including the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, where he began in 1968. He served as a police reporter and general assignments reporter, recovering stories locally and in Europe and in the Middle East. After a leave of absence to serve with a 4th Army Intelligence Unit during the Vietnam War. He became a military and aerospace writer for the newspaper and an investigative reporter. So since 1980, Mars has been a freelance writer, author, and public relations consultant. He's also published a rural weekly newspaper, along with a monthly tourist tabloid, and a cable television shows and several videos. So, beginning in 1992, Mars spent 3 years researching and completing a non-fiction book on a top secret government program called the Stargate Project, involving the psychic phenomenon known as remote viewing, only to have the program cancelled as it was going to press in the summer of 1995. In May 1997, Mars's investigation of UFOs, The Alien Agenda, was published by HarperCollins Publishers. The paperback edition was released in 1998, and it has been translated into several languages and became a top-selling UFO book in the world. So anyway, there's a lot more about this guy. Definitely worth checking out. Phenomenally written books, very well researched. He's got a lot of information and a lot of connections. Dolorus Cannon has a vast amount of material. She was a hypnotherapist, specializing in regression, and her career spanned almost 50 years. When I say regression, hypnotic regression with clients. And her career had taken her on an incredible journey across countless fascinating destinations, and the range of topic of her work covers and sheer volume of original material she had produced places her in a category of her own. She has deceased, unfortunately. Her work is absolutely fascinating. Of course, she regressed hundreds and hundreds of people under hypnosis who claim to have had extraterrestrial experiences, helping them relive their extraterrestrial experiences, but also people would, sometimes the actual ETs would come through the people and speak and give her very interesting and bizarre information, which she pieced together. She's got a lot of content on YouTube, very well calibrated and, easy to understand sort of thing. The Dr. Johnathon Reed case is an interesting case. It's the one case on this list that I'm not actually sure if it's real or if it's a hoax, but I included it because it's worth having a look and you can decide for yourself. Basically, this doctor went into the woods near his house and encountered an extraterrestrial, and apparently this extraterrestrial had a fight with his dog and killed his dog. Then he killed the extraterrestrial and took it into his house and froze it and put it out on the table a few times and froze it again and put it out on the table. This was all filmed and is on YouTube for anyone to watch. Also, he went back into the forest and then saw a so-called kind of like mini UFO type hovering object. So, yeah, many people think that he hoaxed it. I'm not exactly sure what he would be achieving by hoaxing it. If he was a doctor, then he would lose his license to practice. Generally that's what happens, etc., etc., if people think that you are crazy. But nonetheless, obviously the internet is full of hoaxes, and one never knows what's real and what's not real unless you do a broad spectrum sweep and start putting some puzzle pieces together. Then you can kind of work it out. But yeah, the Johnathon Reed case, still worth having a look. And just deciding for yourself. Do you think it's a hoax? Alex Collier claims to be a contactee with the extraterrestrial race known as the Andromedans from the star system Andromeda. He describes this race as human beings that have a slightly blue tint to their skin as a result of the planet they live on. Alex says that the Andromedans are spiritually and technically more advanced than us and exist on a 4th and 5th density, while we are existing on the 3rd density. He says they communicate telepathically and are able to really read and feel each other's emotions. They are all much more connected to each other than we are. So Alex first started having encounters with these people when he was 8 years old, and by the time he was 16, he had shared they had shared many things with him, and his information grew, and he compiled more data, and it became clear to him that it would be of value to us humans to share this information with other people. During his late 30s and his early 40s, he was interviewed by various people and produced some great documents and YouTubes sharing his experiences. The various interviews and work put out by Alex Collier describes the Earth being under control by regressive extraterrestrial beings. These regressive ETs apparently come from the star system known as Alpha Draconis. He says that the problem in our world is basically the result of two completely philosophical belief systems. One group is an advocate for free will, love, and evolution, while the other is an advocate for control and resource consumption. Where is Alex now? Well, Alex made a bit of a stir in the 90s and early 2000s. However, as of recently, he has pretty much vanished off the scene. He states how he is a very private person and his goal is to get the information out and move on. So it seems as though he has possibly completed his task and is staying pretty much quiet from here on out. Well, out of all these researchers, contactees, authors, filmmakers, hypnotists that are in the extraterrestrial field, I have to say that Alex Collier is probably my favorite. The amount of information he has brought to the table is absolutely fascinating, whether you believe it or not. A lot of it does make sense. With regards to Earth history, technology, and what is happening on our planet, how and why. So Alex, he used to be an ordinary guy and have an ordinary job. I think he was a tax man. He used to collect people's tax. And as a result of sharing all this ET experiences and ET information, he found it very difficult to find work, and him and his family, as far as I know, had struggled for many years. Yeah, but what do you do? Anyway, you may as well check his stuff out. It's quite interesting. Linda Moulton Howe is a graduate of Stanford University with a master's degree in communication. She has devoted her documentary film, television, radio, writing and reporting career to productions concerning science, medicine, the environment, and the many subjects involving aspects of the extraterrestrial phenomenon. Ms. Howe has received many local, international, and international awards, including 3 regional Emmys and a National Emmy nomination, and was an honored producer for the medical and science programming in a WCVB Boston station Peabody Award. Linda has got a lot of information online, lots of interviews, and a lot on YouTube. And the information that she has is just mind-blowing and mind-bending. So it's definitely worth checking her out. She was the director of special projects at KMGH TV station in Denver, Colorado, and she received the Aviation Space Writers Association Award for Writing Excellence in Television. Beginning in February 2017, Linda's new web TV series called Truth Hunter, which is reported by her, will debut on the Gaia television network. In addition to her television productions, Linda produces, reports, and edits the award-winning Science, Environment, and Earth Mysteries news website, earthfiles.com, which was honored with a Web Award for News Standard of Excellence and a W3 Silver Award in the news category, an award for Standard of Excellence presented by the Internet's Web Award Association, and Encyclopedia Britannica Award for Journalistic Excellence. So definitely have a look at her news website at earthfiles.com for some insightful information there. She's also been on Coast to Coast AM and many other radio networks, online and offline. She's written 4 books: An Alien Harvest, which was about her investigations of the worldwide animal mutilation phenomenon and the government policies of denial and cover-up. And then she released a new and expanded 2nd edition of this book called Alien Harvest, and it was awarded Best Non-Fiction by the Arizona and New Mexico Southwest Book Association in December 2015. So other books by her include Glimpses of Other Realities, volumes 1 and 2, which concern U.S. military intelligence and civilian testimonies about non-humans interacting with Earth life. Her 4th book, called Mysterious Lights and Crop Circles, details her investigations of the complex crop formation phenomenon in England, the United States, and Canada from 1999 to 2002. In May 2013, she participated in a journalistic witness before several retired U.S. congressional representative panelists in the 2013 citizen hearing at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., produced by Paradigm Research Group. Her topics were military and intelligence eyewitnesses and physical evidence that confirm the interaction of non-humans with Earth, with Earth, and the facts that are suppressed by a United States policy of denial, apparently, which has been going on since World War II. In April 2013, she was honored with the first Lucius Parish Foundation Award for Excellence in Research and Productions Concerning the UFO Phenomenon at the 26th Annual 2013 Ozark Conference in Eureka Springs in Arkansas. In 2011, she traveled nationally and internationally to speak at several conferences about government-leaked information concerning extraterrestrial, time travel, and self-activating software and machines. Hi, Bonny Hut here. Thank you so much for watching this video. Well, you might be asking yourself, maybe there's life on other planets, maybe there isn't, maybe they have visited Earth, maybe they haven't. Why should I bother looking further into it, and why is it important for this planet? Well, in my opinion, there's many reasons why it's an important subject for the people of Earth to look a little further into. But fundamentally, the most important aspect of this subject of extraterrestrial disclosure boils down to one word: technology. It is believed that many compartmentalized factions of some of our governments have access to great amounts of advanced technology which they are not sharing with the people. Technology that can greatly help to clean up and heal our dying planet, and technology that can greatly help humanity. Technology, many different types of technology, including free energy technology, advanced medical technology, which they are all keeping secret. I'd like to dedicate this little film that I made and my painting to all those people who have suffered advanced ridicule, harassment, lost their jobs, lost their livelihood, and many who have lost their lives trying to bring the information about the extraterrestrial situation on our planet to the public. And please consider sharing this video if you thought it was interesting. Thanks, bye!